One of the best pieces of advice I can give you about how to use your time at the end of an interview during question time is to stop asking HR style questions or procedural type questions that you should be asking either HR or possibly the recruiter who initially made contact with you, but definitely not questions you should be asking the interview team, who is most likely going to be technical people or the hiring manager himself, who is the engineering manager for the position you're applying for. So, what should you ask instead? Some questions that I recommend asking are the following. So, you want to frame some questions that can help not only demonstrate that you're thinking forward and you're thinking about how to solve some of this team and department and company's problems, but that you're actually interested in the work itself and you're interested in showing how your background and your skills line up with solving the problems and issues that that team is facing, right? You don't want to come into the interview, give the sentiment that you're just desperate to get a job anywhere and that's why you're here. So, a couple examples here. So, what do most people coming into this role with a background like mine struggle with in the first year? This is a good question because whatever they give you as an answer, you can try to tap into your experiences and your background and show why that wouldn't be an issue for you specifically. So if they say something like, well, a lot of people come into this role, they don't have a lot of experience with automation. Okay, you might have had an example that you didn't get a chance to use in the interview that now you can highlight and say, oh, I didn't get a chance to talk about this, but I actually spent time during my internship working on automation for X company on Y project. Now you get to kind of quell that fear. So if they would have left the interview thinking this is a gap of yours, you now had a chance to speak to it and to address it. Another example could be, what are the biggest challenges this role will face in the next 1 to 2 years? So you're showing that you're thinking about what challenges that company's facing, that department, that group is facing. And based on what their answer is, you can give a strategic response about how you're going to help overcome that challenge, right? Uh, for example, they say one of our biggest challenges is that our team is growing very fast, and we're going to have issues with training new people and documentation and knowledge retention. Okay, so you give an example that you weren't able to pull in on the interview and say, oh, in my internship, I actually worked closely with a team that we had to do a lot of documentation knowledge for knowledge retention by doing XYZ, right? So you're showing the question itself is demonstrating that you're thinking forward and you're thinking of how to solve problems in the future. Then hopefully you have an experience maybe you didn't get to share during the interview questions to address that issue. The last example would be, what gaps in technical knowledge or tools knowledge do you feel like your team has now that I might be able to add with the experiences that we've talked about? You might have a team who, for example, is not very strong in AI usage or in scripting or automating certain tasks, right? And you've spoken about that in some of your examples, or you didn't have a chance to speak about that. Now you can uncover that, give a strong example of how you're going to help fix that issue, right? So the take home message is, you don't want to be using that precious time. Most engineering interviews, especially behavioral based interviews, you really have like 5 minutes tops at the end of the interview, maybe 10 minutes to ask intelligent questions to the interview panel. You don't want to waste that time on HR based questions like, when are you going to expect to have an answer for who got hired? Am I going to have to relocate to XYZ city? How much time would I have to relocate? How much vacation time will there, these kind of HR questions are not things you want to waste on the technical hiring team that probably includes the hiring manager himself. You want to ask these types of questions that show that you're forward thinking. You're thinking about how to address problems that the team is going to be facing either now or in the future, and try to demonstrate how your knowledge and your competencies line up with solving those problems is a much better use of that time rather than the procedural HR process questions of going through the hiring process. Hopefully, this was useful.